An old opponent of Roman Reigns has recently commented on the idea of facing him, so we'll get into that topic. We'll also see what's going on with John Cena and Becky Lynch, as well as what's a risk for Sasha Banks at WrestleMania. So let's start things off with this Sasha Banks WrestleMania situation that has some fans discussing. Sasha Banks can retire tomorrow and instantly be a first ballot Hall of Fame member. Her career is full of that many accomplishments and achievements. But one thing that fans are waiting for every year is for Sasha Banks to have her own big WrestleMania moment. Sure, she main evented WrestleMania 37, and that was a dream come true. But unfortunately, that match didn't end in a victory for Sasha Banks. She still remains winless at WrestleMania, with 0 wins and 6 losses. Now, when this women's tag team match at WrestleMania was just Zelina Vega and Carmella versus Naomi and Sasha Banks, everyone thought that this losing streak would definitely be over, and that Sasha and Naomi would easily win that match, giving Sasha her long-awaited WrestleMania win. But it feels like WWE keeps adding another tag team to the match every week, which only continues to lower the odds for Sasha and Naomi to win. This women's tag team match went from being an ordinary match to now being a fatal 4-way tag team match with Carmella and Zelina, Sasha and Naomi, Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, and now Natalya and Shayna Baszler. 3 out of those 4 teams were just formed randomly over these last few weeks. But what's the point of including so many teams in this women's tag team match? Well, the answer is simple, and it's something that they did at WrestleMania 37 as well. They included so many teams in this tag team match in order to give more superstars a chance to compete at WrestleMania. So instead of this tag team match only containing 4 individuals, it now contains 8. So it's just another way to get more superstars on the card for WrestleMania and give them a role at the big event. Judging the now 4 teams in the match, Sasha and Naomi still have to be the favorite to pick up the win. Carmella and Zelina have been showing a lot of cracks in their team every now and then, and the rest of the teams were just randomly formed the other day. Sasha and Naomi just reunited a few weeks ago as well, but they have a lot of history with each other dating back to 2015, so taking that into consideration, they have the most experienced team here. However, have to remember that it's not an ordinary tag team match, it's a fatal 4-way, so every team is walking in there with a 25% chance to win the match. Pretty low odds, but again, it just feels like this is Sasha and Naomi's match to win. You have last year's WrestleMania main eventer with Sasha Banks and Naomi, who's also been a focal point of WWE television over the last few months with her Sonya Deville storyline. So it feels like Sasha Banks picking up that first WrestleMania win and Naomi having her closure and being a champion again is the picture-perfect ending here for the women's tag team match. Any other winner would be a pretty shocking outcome, and not only that, but if someone else wins this match, you drop Sasha to 7 straight WrestleMania losses, which you don't really want to do, so hopefully Sasha and Naomi can pull this one off. Becky Lynch recently appeared on Colin Murray's Midnight Meats and opened up about a story on how John Cena once angered her backstage. Becky Lynch had this to say about that entire exchange, quote, "John Cena used to always ask me whenever I'd asked him for advice, 'Who are you? Who are you?' Well, I'm, a freaking underdog that fights. Yeah, that's fine. We have lots of them. Who are you?" So I was always trying to figure out that answer, end quote. Funny enough, Apollo Crews also stated that John Cena had the same exact reaction with him in 2021. And John Cena doesn't mean the question literally like, what's their name? Cena is asking that question on a much deeper scale. He's basically asking them, what's your identity? Why should fans care about you? And even for the most experienced pro wrestlers, that's a tough question to answer sometimes. John Cena was obviously implying that you have to be someone unique that stands out from the crowd that people feel like they need to care about. That's why he said the whole underdog arc is playing out already, because it's so overused, and something that everyone always calls themselves when they're at the bottom of the WWE ladder. And Becky Lynch, just going back a few years to 2017, early 2018, was struggling to answer that question from John Cena and struggling with her career. Becky was going months and months without being on television, working dark matches before the television shows, just having no time at all. But once she found her identity and that answer to John Cena's question, she now stood out from the rest of the roster. The fans noticed her and gravitated to her. And just looking at the run she went on from late 2018 to current day, first woman to win a WrestleMania event, multiple title reigns, multiple title defenses at WrestleMania, and so much more. Today's Becky Lynch is almost unrecognizable to 2016 Becky Lynch, who was still trying to discover who she was in WWE. So it's just a very interesting thing to hear about these kind of backstage stories and how John Cena offers his advice. All he does is give you those 3 words. Who are you? And if you have a unique answer to that question, then you're going to be someone in WWE. Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns was a storyline that we briefly saw in late 2020. These two superstars were on separate brands, but what made us see this match was thanks to the traditional champion versus champion match at Survivor Series. Roman and Drew went back and forth for a handful of weeks leading up to that match, and it truly was this clash of WWE's hottest superstars. Drew McIntyre obviously played a big role in carrying WWE through the first few months of the pandemic era during 2020. Then Roman returned that summer and took over from there on. So it was this big collision of these two WWE juggernauts. These two faced off their respective brands. It was a great match and short story, but due to Jey Uso getting involved, we still don't know if Roman would have been able to defeat Drew McIntyre cleanly that night or not. And ever since Drew McIntyre came to SmackDown, fans have been itching at the idea of seeing Roman and Drew pick back up from where they left off at a few years ago. Drew McIntyre appeared on The Bump this week and shared his thoughts on Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. Quote, "Let's start with the obvious, Roman versus Brock Lesnar. Got a history with both of them. I defeated Brock Lesnar for my first WWE Championship. These days, he's going through a new phase of Cowboy Brock, which is something even more terrifying than when he was angry all the time. Roman and I have a big history together, probably my greatest opponent since I've returned to WWE, my kryptonite. I still haven't defeated him, so I'll keep my eyes close on that match because whoever wins that, I'm gunning for." End quote. And that's not a surprise at all. Drew McIntyre has been heavily protected and is still on a hot streak, so he'll easily be a possible opponent for whoever walks out of WrestleMania as champion. So be on the lookout because whoever is the unified champion after WrestleMania may have Drew McIntyre knocking on their door real soon. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.